Admiral Kethvar stared at the display screen with amusement dancing in his 4 eyes. The object floating in space ahead of them looked like something a child might build from scrap metal. Dull gray plates covered its surface in a rough pattern. Strange tubes stuck out at odd angles. Thick black smoke drifted from several openings along its side. "This is what the humans call a starship?" Lieutenant Zara asked from beside him. Her voice carried the same mocking tone that filled the bridge of the Coalition warship Stellar Dawn. "Apparently so," Kethvar replied, his mandibles clicking with laughter. "Look at it. No energy shields, no plasma drives. It appears to be powered by some kind of chemical combustion system. How primitive." The bridge crew erupted in chittering laughter. After 300 years of expanding across the galaxy, the Zephyrian Coalition had encountered dozens of species. Most surrendered quickly when they saw the advanced technology of the Coalition fleet. A few tried to fight with energy weapons. And force fields? All of them failed. But humans were different. They were worse than primitive. They were pathetic. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the human vessel," the communications officer announced. "Put it through," Kethvar ordered. Still grinning, the main screen flickered and showed the interior of what looked like a metal cave. Pipes and cables ran everywhere. Strange lights blinked in patterns that made no sense. In the center of this chaos stood a human female wearing a simple blue uniform. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Earth vessel Leviathan," the human said. Her voice was calm, despite the obvious damage to her ship. "We are experiencing serious mechanical failures. Can you provide assistance?" Kethvar studied the human with interest. She looked exactly like the intelligence reports described. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head with hair growing from the top. Her skin was darker than expected, and her eyes held an intelligence that seemed oddly sharp for such a primitive creature. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Coalition," he replied formally. "We detected your vessel drifting in our territory." "You are quite far from your home system, Captain Chun." "Yes, sir. This is humanity's first attempt at interstellar travel. Our navigation systems failed 3 days ago. We have been drifting ever since." Chun gestured to the sparking equipment behind her. "We had no idea anyone else lived out here." The bridge crew burst into fresh laughter. First attempt at interstellar travel? The Coalition had been crossing between stars for over 1,000 years. These humans were barely crawling out of their own solar system. "Captain Chun, I am curious about your vessel," Kethvar said, trying to keep the amusement from his voice. "Our scans show some unusual readings. What type of construction methods did your people use?" Chun paused for a moment. Something flickered across her face too quickly for Kethvar to identify. "Human engineering takes a different approach than most species, Admiral. We tend to work with available materials and adapt as needed." "Adapt as needed," Lieutenant Zara repeated quietly, shaking her head. "We would be honored to escort you back to our territory," Kethvar announced. "The Coalition believes in peaceful first contact with new species. Consider this a gesture of friendship between our peoples. That is very generous, Admiral. We accept your offer gratefully." "Excellent. I am sending a boarding party to assess your damage and provide any assistance we can offer. Our scientists are quite interested in studying your technology." Another pause. This time, Kethvar was sure he saw something change in the human's expression. "Of course, Admiral. We welcome your people aboard." The transmission ended, leaving a bridge in excited chatter. A chance to study primitive human technology would advance Coalition science by showing them exactly what not to do. The intelligence reports suggested humans still used metal and chemical reactions for most of their technology. No energy manipulation, no quantum processing, no bioengineering. "Prepare Shuttle Bay 2, Kethvar ordered. "Send Chief Science Officer Vexena with a full research team." and include a security detail. These humans seem friendly enough, but we know nothing about their customs. 20 minutes later, Kethfer watched through the shuttle's cameras as it approached the human vessel. Up close, the Leviathan looked even more primitive. The metal plates were clearly welded together by hand. Rough seams showed were different. Sections had been joined. Several areas looked like they had been repaired multiple times with whatever materials were available. The construction quality is remarkably poor, Vexena reported through the communication link. I am seeing stress fractures in multiple hull sections. This vessel should not be able to maintain atmosphere in deep space. Yet it apparently carried them across interstellar distances, Kethfer mused. Perhaps humans are more durable than our reports suggested. The shuttle docked with a crude airlock that looked like it had been cut into the side of the ship with basic tools. Vexena and her team entered the Leviathan wearing full environmental suits. Not trusting human life support systems, what they found inside surprised everyone. Admiral, you need to see this. Vexena's voice carried confusion and excitement. The interior does not match the exterior at all. The camera feed showed corridors that curved in impossible ways. The walls were not made of the same crude metal as the outside. Instead, they appeared to be some kind of biomechanical hybrid. Organic-looking tubes ran alongside metal pipes. Surfaces that should have been hard and cold seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. What kind of materials are these? Kethfer asked. I have never seen anything like them, Vexena admitted. The metal appears to have cellular structure. These organic components are unlike any biological matter in our databases. They seem to be alive, but also artificial. Captain Shun appeared in the corridor ahead of the boarding party. She had removed her environmental helmet and was breathing the ship's atmosphere normally. Welcome aboard the Leviathan, Science Officer Vexena. I hope you find our vessel interesting. Most interesting indeed, Captain Shun. How did your people develop this hybrid technology? Humans have always been good at working with what we find, Shun replied. When we discovered certain materials in our solar system, we learned to incorporate them into our designs. The results have been quite effective. Vexena's team spent the next hour exploring the ship and taking readings. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. Corridors seemed to grow wider as they walked through them. Walls showed neural pathways that resembled brain tissue more than construction material. Equipment hummed with sounds that registered on frequencies their instruments could barely detect. Captain Shun, I must ask directly, Vexena said finally. What exactly is this ship made from? Chun smiled, and for just a moment, Kethfer thought her teeth looked sharper than they should. The Leviathan is made from many things, Science Officer. Metal and flesh. Old knowledge and new discovery. Dreams and hunger. I do not understand. Few species do, at first, but they learn. Back on the Stellar Dawn, Kethfer studied the reports from the boarding party with growing puzzlement. The readings made no sense. According to their instruments, parts of the human ship were definitely alive. Other parts registered as technology more advanced than anything in Coalition databases. Yet the humans claimed to be primitive explorers on their first journey between stars. Sir, the human ship is requesting permission to travel alongside us back to Coalition territory, Lieutenant Zara reported. Of course, we promised to escort them to safety. Kethfer made his decision quickly. Whatever strange technology the humans had stumbled across, it would be valuable to study. Perhaps they had found some ancient artifacts in their solar system. The galaxy was full of ruins from civilizations that had existed millions of years ago. Set course for Zephyr Prime, standard escort formation, and maintain continuous scans of the human vessel. I want to know everything about their technology before we reach home. As the small fleet began moving through space, Kethfer watched the Leviathan keep pace easily despite its primitive appearance. The ship moved with a strange grace that seemed at odds with its crude construction. Sometimes it almost looked like it was swimming through space rather than flying. Fascinating, he murmured to himself. These humans may be more resourceful than we initially believed. Behind him, Lieutenant Zara monitored the sensor readings and frowned. According to her instruments, the human ship was slowly growing larger. New sections seemed to be forming along its hull. When she recalibrated the scanners and checked again, the readings were normal. She decided not to mention it to the Admiral. Probably just a glitch in the equipment. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrian fleet began escorting the human vessel toward Coalition space. Admiral Kethfor stood in his private quarters, studying the latest reports from his science teams. What he read made no sense at all. The human ship was impossible. Every scan revealed new mysteries. The metal hull showed signs of cellular growth. The organic components processed energy in ways that violated known physics. Most disturbing of all, the ship appeared to be learning from its contact with Coalition technology. A soft chime announced, "Someone at his door." "Enter." Kethfor called. Science Officer Vegsina stepped inside, carrying a datapad and looking deeply troubled. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by something close to fear. "Admiral, we need to discuss the human vessel." "Immediately," she said without greeting. "More impossible readings?" Kethfor asked, gesturing for her to sit. "Worse than impossible, sir. The ship is growing. Not just expanding or adding sections. Actually growing like a living creature. Yesterday, it measured 800 meters in length. Today, it measures 850 meters. Kethfor set down his own datapad. "Equipment malfunction? We have checked and rechecked every instrument. The measurements are accurate, but that is not the most concerning discovery." Vexna activated her pad and showed him a series of images. "These are scans of the ship's interior from yesterday and today. Look at the corridor layouts." The images showed the same sections of the ship taken 24 hours apart. In the first scan, corridors followed simple straight lines. In the second scan, those same corridors had developed new branches and chambers that definitely had not existed before. "The ship is rewriting itself," Vexna continued, "creating new spaces and pathways. And, sir, some of our equipment has been malfunctioning since we came near the human vessel. Personal communicators stop working for brief periods. Scanning devices give readings that change when we are not looking at them." Kethfor felt a chill run through his body. "What does Captain Chun say about these changes?" "That is another problem, Admiral. Captain Chun knows things she should not know." "Explain." Vexna pulled up another file. "Yesterday she asked me about Coalition defensive capabilities. Specifically, she wanted to know about our shield technologies and weapon systems. When I asked why she was curious, she said humans always try to learn from more advanced civilizations." "That seems reasonable." "Yes, sir." But then she began asking about troop numbers, fleet positions, and the locations of major population centers. She knows the names of Coalition worlds that are not included in any first contact protocols. She knows about military installations that are classified at the highest levels. The chill in Kethfor's body grew stronger. How could a primitive human know classified military information? "I do not know, sir. But there is more." When I asked her about human civilization, her answers were strange. She spoke about Earth's colonies, but never mentioned specific colony worlds. She referred to the fleet, but could not provide details about other human ships. Every answer was vague and general. Kethfor stood and walked to the viewport that showed the human ship floating alongside them. From the outside, the Leviathan still looked like a crude collection of welded metal plates. But now he noticed things he had missed before. The way it moved through space was too smooth for a ship powered by chemical engines. The way light reflected off its hull created patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. "What do your teams think about the organic components?" he asked. "They are not like any biological matter we have ever encountered," Vexina replied. "They appear to be alive, but they also show signs of artificial construction. Some sections respond to our presence by changing temperature or shifting position. Slightly. It is as if the ship is aware of us." "Aware of us?" "Yes, sir. Several team members have reported feeling watched while aboard the human vessel. They describe a sensation of invisible eyes following them through the corridors. 2 engineers requested to return to our ship because they could not concentrate on their work." Kethver turned back to face his science officer. "Do you believe the humans are hostile?" "I do not know what to believe about the humans, Admiral, but I am certain they are not what they appear to be." Before Kethvar could respond, his personal communicator activated. "Admiral, to the bridge immediately," came Lieutenant Zera's voice. "We have a situation with the escort fleet." The 2 officers hurried to the bridge, where they found the crew gathered around the main display screen. Lieutenant Zara looked pale and confused. "Report," Kethvar ordered. "Sir, we have lost contact with the bright star," Zara announced. "Complete communication failure approximately 10 minutes ago." Kethvar studied the tactical display. The bright star was one of 3 escort vessels traveling with them. According to the screen, it should have been 2,000 kilometers off their port side. "Sensor contact?" he asked. "That is the problem, sir. Sensors show nothing in that position. No debris, no energy signatures, no trace that a ship was ever there." "Engine failure? Did they drop out of formation?" "Negative, sir. We were monitoring their status continuously. All systems were normal until the moment contact was lost. Then they simply vanished." Kethver felt his stomach tighten. Zephyrian ships did not simply vanish. Their technology was too reliable, their crews too well trained. Something had happened to the bright star, and he had no idea what. "Open a channel to Captain Chun," he ordered. The main screen changed to show the interior of the human ship. Captain Chun appeared, looking concerned and sympathetic. "Admiral Kethvar, we detected some kind of energy disturbance a few minutes ago. Is everything all right with your fleet?" "We have lost contact with one of our escort vessels," Kethvar replied carefully. "Did your sensors detect anything unusual?" I'm afraid our scanning equipment is quite primitive compared to yours," Chun said. "We detected the energy disturbance, but could not identify its source. Space can be dangerous for ships that are not properly prepared." "Properly prepared for what?" Chun paused, and again Kethver saw something flicker across her expression. "There are many dangers in deep space, Admiral. Ancient hazards that most civilizations learn to avoid. Perhaps your missing ship encountered something unexpected. What kind of ancient hazards?" "Old things, Admiral. Things that sleep in the dark between stars until something disturbs them. Most species develop the technology to detect and avoid such dangers. But sometimes even the most advanced civilizations make mistakes." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in uncomfortable silence. Kethvar stared at the blank screen, trying to understand what the human captain had just told him. Ancient hazards? Things that sleep in space? It sounded like primitive superstition, but one of his ships was gone. "Continue monitoring all frequencies," he ordered, "and increase sensor sweeps of the surrounding area. I want to know everything that happens within 1,000,000 kilometers of this fleet." Over the next few hours, Kethver received increasingly disturbing reports. The human ship continued to grow, adding new sections that appeared overnight. Equipment throughout the Zephyrian fleet experienced random malfunctions that repair teams could not explain. Several crew members reported strange dreams about being hunted through dark corridors by something they could not see. Most troubling of all, Captain Chun continued to demonstrate knowledge she should not possess. During their evening communication, she casually mentioned the defensive capabilities of Zephyr Prime, the Coalition capital world. She asked about civilian evacuation procedures and emergency military protocols. When questioned about her sources of information, she claimed humans were naturally curious about the civilizations they encountered. "Admiral," Lieutenant Zara said quietly as they watched the human ship through the bridge viewport, "I have been reviewing our sensor logs from the past 3 days. The patterns are subtle, but I believe the human vessel has been scanning our ships continuously since we first made contact." "What kind of scans?" "Deep penetration scans that map our internal systems, crew locations, and weapon configurations. The scanning frequency is so low that our automatic detection systems did not register it as hostile activity." Kethver felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. A primitive ship that was actually highly advanced. A human captain who knew classified information. A missing escort vessel. Continuous scanning of Coalition technology. "Zara, what would you do if you were a predator trying to learn about potential prey?" "I would study them carefully, sir. Learn their weaknesses and capabilities before making." "My move. And how would you do that without arousing suspicion?" "I would pretend to be harmless. Maybe even ask for help so the prey would come close enough to study." They looked at each other with growing understanding. The human ship was not damaged. Captain Chun was not a primitive explorer asking for assistance. The Leviathan was not a crude vessel built by a species taking its first steps into space. They were being hunted. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the Wandering Moon is reporting massive system failures. They are requesting immediate assistance." On the tactical display, the second escort vessel showed multiple red warning indicators. But even as they watched, those indicators began to disappear one by one. Not because the problems were being fixed, but because the ship itself was vanishing from their sensors. Admiral Kethfor watched in horror as the Wandering Moon disappeared from their sensors. One moment the escort ship was there, sending desperate distress signals. The next moment, empty space. Long-range sensors, maximum power, he ordered. "I want every detail of what happened to that ship." The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. After several minutes, Lieutenant Zara looked up with a face pale with shock. "Sir, you need to see this recording. Our sensors captured the final moments before we lost contact." The main screen showed a tactical view of the area where the Wandering Moon had been. At first, everything looked normal. The escort ship floated in space, its hull intact, but showing signs of system failures. Then something impossible appeared. On the recording thin, dark lines extended from the human ship toward the Wandering Moon. At first, they looked like shadows or sensor errors. But as the recording continued, those lines became clearer. They were tentacles or appendages of some kind, reaching across thousands of kilometers of space. "That is not possible," Science Officer Vexina whispered. "Nothing can extend solid matter across such distances in vacuum." The tentacles wrapped around the Wandering Moon like fingers grasping a toy. The escort ship's hull began to buckle and crack under impossible pressure. Lights flickered and died throughout the vessel. Then the tentacles pulled, and the entire ship was drawn toward the human vessel at tremendous speed. But the most terrifying part came at the end of the recording. As the Wandering Moon reached the Leviathan, the human ship opened. The crude metal hull split apart like a mouth filled with teeth. The escort ship disappeared inside, and the hull closed again. Within seconds, the Leviathan looked exactly as it had before, showing no sign that it had just swallowed a vessel 1/3 its size. "Replay that section," Kethver ordered, his voice barely steady. They watched again as the human ship opened like a predator consuming prey. There was no question now about what they were dealing with. The Leviathan was not a ship at all. It was a creature, something alive and hungry, that had been pretending to be human technology. "Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Shun," the communications officer announced. "Put her through." Captain Shun appeared on the screen, looking concerned and sympathetic. Behind her, the organic corridors of the creature pulsed gently with their own rhythm. Now that he knew what to look for, Cathfar could see the truth. Those were not corridors at all. They were inside the belly of a living thing. "Admiral Cathfar, we detected another energy disturbance," Chun said. "Have you lost contact with a second vessel?" "Captain Shun," Cathfar replied slowly. "What exactly is your ship?" Chun tilted her head slightly, and her expression changed. The concern and sympathy disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. When she smiled, her teeth definitely looked sharper than before. "My ship? The Leviathan is not a ship, Admiral. It is much more than that. What are you?" "I am Captain Chun, as I told you. I command this vessel and its crew. We serve together in a partnership that has lasted longer than your civilization has existed." "Partnership with what?" Chun gestured to the pulsing walls around her. "With one of the oldest creatures in the galaxy. A being that was ancient when your species was still learning to make fire. It has been sleeping in the dark between stars for millions of years, dreaming of better times when Cray was plentiful." Cathfar felt his 4 hearts beating rapidly. "And you woke it up?" "Not exactly. Humans found it during our first explorations beyond Earth. Most species would have fled in terror or tried to destroy it. But humans are different, Admiral. We adapt, we learn. We form partnerships with things that others fear." "What kind of partnership?" "A simple one. The Leviathan carries us across the galaxy to new hunting grounds. In return, we help it find prey and guide it through the complexities of modern space travel. We are its eyes and hands in dealing with younger civilizations." The bridge crew listened in stunned silence as the human captain explained their nightmare. They were not dealing with primitive explorers who had stumbled across ancient technology. They were facing predators who had formed an alliance with something older and more dangerous than anything in coalition databases. "The escort ships," Cathfar said. "It ate them." "The Leviathan feeds on more than just metal and energy," Chun explained patiently. "It consumes knowledge, experience, the essence of living beings. Each ship it absorbs makes it stronger and more intelligent. Every crew it processes adds to its understanding of galactic civilizations. You are parasites, feeding off the work of others." Chun's expression hardened. "We are survivors, Admiral. Your coalition has expanded across hundreds of worlds by conquering and subjugating other species. You mock civilizations you consider primitive and absorb their resources for your own benefit. How are we different? We do not eat our allies." "Do you not? What happens to species that refuse to join your coalition? Where are the Caltharian people now? What about the Vormak Republic? Your history is full of civilizations that disappeared after first contact with your forces." Cathfar felt a chill of recognition. The species Chun mentioned had indeed vanished from the galaxy. Coalition records claimed they had destroyed themselves in civil wars or natural disasters. But now he wondered if something else had been responsible. "How many ships like yours are there?" he asked. "Ships? Admiral, you still do not understand. The Leviathan is not a ship. It is a living creature that can cross interstellar space. There are dozens of them scattered across the galaxy, each one guided by human crews. We have been mapping civilizations and hunting grounds for longer than you might imagine." "Hunting grounds?" "The galaxy is full of young, arrogant species who believe they are the dominant life forms. They expand aggressively, consume resources carelessly, and treat other beings as inferior. Such species make excellent prey for creatures like the Leviathan. On the tactical display, Warning lights began flashing around their own ship. Lieutenant Zara looked up with panic in her eyes. "Admiral, our drive systems are failing. Something is interfering with our engines." "The same thing that happened to the escort ships?" "Yes, sir, but we are detecting it earlier. We have maybe 10 minutes before complete system failure." Kethver made a desperate decision. All power to weapons. Target the human vessel and fire everything we have. "Admiral." Chun's voice continued from the speaker. "That would be unwise. The Leviathan has been studying your technology for 3 days. It knows how your weapons work and has already adapted defenses against them. The weapon systems charged and fired. Plasma bolts and energy beams struck the Leviathan's hull. 4. A moment. Kethver felt hope as he saw the crude metal plating begin to glow and melt. Then the creature's true surface appeared beneath the disguise. Instead of metal, they saw something that looked like dark flesh, covered in scales the size of buildings. The plasma bolts were absorbed into the creature's hide without causing any apparent damage. The energy beams were deflected by fields that bent space itself. "Your weapons are quite impressive," Chun said calmly. "The Leviathan will incorporate their design into its own defensive systems. Thank you for the demonstration. What do you want from us?" Kethver asked desperately. "Initially, we wanted safe passage through Coalition space to reach better hunting grounds. But now that we have studied your technology and learned about your military capabilities, our plans have changed." "Changed how?" "The Coalition controls too much territory and commands too many resources to ignore. You have become a threat to the natural order of things. The Leviathan has decided that your civilization would make an excellent meal." The lights on the bridge flickered as their power systems continued to fail. In the growing darkness, Shun's image on the screen seemed to glow with its own light. "Your species has had thousands of years to develop wisdom and restraint," she continued. "Instead, you chose conquest and domination. You laughed at humanity because we seemed primitive and weak. That laughter will be the last sound many of your people ever make. You cannot destroy an entire civilization with one creature." "One creature?" "Admiral, I told you there are dozens of Leviathans scattered across the galaxy. They have been waiting in the dark, studying your patrol routes and defense systems. Some have been inside Coalition space for months, disguised as asteroids or derelict ships." Chun's smile grew wider, showing teeth that were definitely not human anymore. "The hunt begins in earnest now. Your escort ships were just the appetizer. The real feast starts when we reach your populated worlds." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in darkness punctuated only by emergency lighting. Outside the viewport, the Leviathan began to change. The disguise of crude metal plating fell away completely, revealing something ancient and terrible. The creature was massive beyond imagination, easily 10 times larger than their most powerful battleship, and it was reaching toward them with appendages that could grasp ships like toys. The Leviathan unfolded like a nightmare made real. What had appeared to be a crude human ship revealed itself as something ancient and terrible. Dark flesh stretched across a frame larger than a city. Appendages longer than battleships reached toward the remaining Zephyrian vessels. Eyes the size of buildings opened along its surface, glowing with intelligence older than most civilizations. Admiral Kethvar stared in horror as his tactical display tried to make sense of what it was seeing. The computer systems kept recalculating the creature's size, unable to believe their own measurements. The thing was not just large. It was impossibly vast, its true dimensions hidden by some kind of space-folding technology that compressed its bulk into a smaller area. All ships. "Emergency jump to hyperspace," Kethver ordered into his communicator. "Repeat, all vessels jump immediately." "Sir, hyperspace drives are not responding," Lieutenant Zara reported, her voice shaking. Something is jamming our jump systems. That is not possible. Coalition drives cannot be jammed by any known technology. The creature has been studying our systems for 3 days, Science Officer Vexna said quietly. It learned how to disable our most critical capabilities. One of the Leviathan's appendages wrapped around the escort ship, Silent Wind. The vessel's captain tried desperately to break free, firing thrusters at maximum power. The ship's hull groaned under impossible pressure as the creature began to squeeze. Metal that could withstand the vacuum of space crumpled like paper in the monster's grasp. Silent Wind, can you hear me? Kethver called through the communicator. Admiral, came Captain Rexstar's panicked voice. The creature is doing something to our ship. Our systems are not just failing, they are being rewritten. The computer is learning things it should not know. What kind of things? Coalition military. Codes. Defense grid frequencies. Jump point locations. It is copying everything from our databases. The communication ended abruptly as the Silent Wind was pulled toward the Leviathan's main body. Again, the creature opened like a mouth, filled with teeth, and consumed the vessel whole. But this time, Kethvar could see more details. The interior was not empty space. It was filled with organic structures that looked like a combination of digestive system and computer network. It is processing the ship and crew simultaneously, Vexna observed with scientific horror, converting matter into energy while copying information patterns. The crew's knowledge and experiences are being absorbed along with their physical forms. How is that possible? I do not know, sir. This creature operates on principles we do not understand. It may be older than our understanding of physics itself. Another appendage reached toward their flagship, the Stellar Dawn. Kethver watched. It approached with a mixture of terror and fascination. Up close, he could see that the appendage was not solid flesh. It was a complex network of organic fibers and metallic structures that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. All weapon batteries. Continuous fire, he ordered. Target the approaching appendage. Energy beams and plasma bolts struck the creature's limb. The attacks should have severed it completely. Instead, the weapon's fire was absorbed into the organic network and redirected back at them. Their own energy bolts struck the stellar dawns. Shields, draining power from the very systems they needed for defense. It is learning from each attack, the weapons officer reported. The creature is analyzing our weapons and developing counters in real time. Then we use different weapons, fire kinetic rounds, physical projectiles. The ship's railguns launched metal slugs at tremendous velocity. The projectiles struck the appendage and penetrated several meters into its surface. For a moment, Kethver felt hope. Then he watched in horror as the wounds closed immediately. Worse, metallic structures within the creature began reshaping themselves to match the railgun projectiles. It is incorporating our weapons into its own biology, Vexna said with scientific amazement that bordered on madness. Every attack teaches it how to defend against similar assaults in the future. The appendage wrapped around their ship with the gentleness of a careful predator. Instead of crushing them immediately, it began to probe their hull with smaller tendrils. These hair-thin fibers found microscopic gaps in their armor and slipped inside the ship. Hull breach alerts throughout the vessel, Lieutenant Zara reported. But the breaches are too small to cause decompression. Something is getting inside our ship through cracks we cannot even see. Emergency lights flickered throughout the bridge as the creature's probes reached their electrical systems. Computer displays showed impossible readings as alien intelligence touched their technology. For brief moments, crew members could see through the eyes of the Leviathan, experiencing space from the perspective of something vast and ancient. Admiral, the communications officer said in a voice that was not quite his own, the creature wishes to speak with you directly. Before Kethvar could respond, Every screen on the bridge activated. But instead of showing Captain Chun, they displayed something far more disturbing. The displays showed the interior of the Leviathan, but not the corridors where Chun had appeared. Before, this was deeper inside, in chambers that pulsed with bioluminescent light, floating in organic pods. Throughout these chambers were beings from dozens of different species. Some Kethvar recognized as members of civilizations that had vanished from the galaxy centuries ago. Others were completely unknown. All of them were alive, but changed. Their bodies showed modifications that blended flesh with technology in ways that should have been impossible. "Welcome to the collective," said a voice that came from all the beings simultaneously. "We are what remains of those who came before you. You are prisoners," Kethvar said. "We are partners," the collective replied. "We chose integration over destruction. Our knowledge and experience live on within the Leviathan's consciousness. We help guide it toward suitable prey and away from civilizations that might prove dangerous." Dangerous to what? To the natural order. The galaxy has room for only so many aggressive, expanding species. When civilizations grow too large and consume too many resources, they must be pruned back. By what authority? The collective laughed with dozens of voices speaking in harmony. By the authority of age and wisdom. The Leviathans were hunting among the stars when your ancestors were still learning to make fire. They understand the balance that keeps the galaxy from being consumed by endless war and expansion. And humans help them? Humans are unique among young species, the collective explained. They do not try to dominate or control the Leviathans. Instead, they form partnerships. They offer their intelligence and adaptability in exchange for passage among the stars. It is a relationship that benefits both sides. On the screen, Captain Chun appeared alongside the collective. But now Kethvar could see that she was not entirely human anymore. Her body showed the same organic modifications as the other beings. Cables grew from her spine, connecting her directly to the creature's nervous system. Her eyes glowed with an inner light that was definitely not natural. "Admiral Kethvar," Chun said, "the Leviathan offers you the same choice it offers all intelligent beings. Join the collective and share your knowledge and experience. Help guide the creature toward appropriate targets. In return, your consciousness will be preserved, and your species' wisdom will contribute to the greater understanding. And if we refuse, then you become food like the rest of your fleet. Your ships will be consumed, your crew processed, and your civilization marked for elimination. The choice is yours." Kethvar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Some showed terror. Others showed a strange fascination with the offer. Lieutenant Zara stared at the screens with an expression that suggested she was seriously considering the collective's proposal. "How long do we have to decide?" Kethvar asked. "The decision must be made now," Chun replied. "The Leviathan grows hungry, and your ship's energy reserves are nearly depleted. Join us willingly or be consumed by force." The bridge lights flickered and died completely. In the darkness, bioluminescent patterns began appearing on the walls, as the creature's probes took control of their electrical systems. The air itself seemed to thicken as organic modifications began spreading through the ship's atmosphere. "Sir," Vexena whispered in the darkness, "our life support systems are being modified. The creature is changing our air to make us more compatible with its internal environment." Kethvar realized they had perhaps minutes before the transformation became irreversible. His crew would be absorbed into the collective whether they agreed or not. The choice was not between joining or staying free. The choice was between willing integration or forced consumption. He looked one last time at the tactical display, where the positions of dozen other Leviathans were now visible throughout Coalition space. Each one was moving toward a major population center, The hunt was not limited to their small fleet. It was a coordinated assault on their entire civilization. "Admiral," Shun's voice came through the speakers one final time, "what is your decision?" Admiral Kethver stood in the dying darkness of his bridge, feeling the weight of an impossible decision. Around him, his crew waited for orders that could save them or damn them forever. The organic modifications spreading through their ship grew stronger by the second. Soon the choice would be made for them. "I need 1 minute to consider your offer," Kethver said to the screens showing Captain Shun and the collective. "Time is not something you possess, Admiral," Chon replied. "But the Leviathan is patient. You have 60 seconds. Kethver moved close to Lieutenant Zara and whispered urgently, "Can we overload the main reactor, sir?" Zara looked confused. "If we cannot escape and we cannot fight, then we deny them our knowledge. Can we destroy the ship completely?" Zara's eyes widened as she understood. "Yes, sir. But the overload would take 3 minutes to build to critical levels." "The creature would stop us before then. Not if we distract it first." Kethver turned to Science Officer Vexena. "How much do we know about the creature's biology?" "Very little, sir. But our scans suggest it has multiple brain centers distributed throughout its body. No single vital point that would disable it completely." "What about sensory organs?" "Those eyes we saw opening on its surface? They appear to be primary visual sensors, yes. Extremely sensitive to electromagnetic radiation." Kethver felt a desperate plan forming in his mind. It would not save them, but it might give the Coalition a warning about what was coming. "Can we overload our communications array to create an electromagnetic pulse?" "The pulse would be powerful. Enough to damage nearby electronics," Vexena said slowly, "including our own systems and the creature's sensory organs." "Do it. When I give the signal, overload everything. Communications, sensors, even the lights. Create the biggest electromagnetic burst our ship can generate. Sir, that will destroy our ability to communicate with the Coalition. We will not be able to warn them. We will send one final message before we overload the systems. A warning that includes everything we learned about these creatures and their human partners." The 60 seconds ended. Captain Shun appeared on the screen again, her modified face showing impatience. "Admiral Kethver, the Leviathan requires your decision now." "I choose to join your collective," Kethver said loudly. "My crew and I submit to integration." Chun smiled, and the organic modifications spreading through the ship slowed their advance. "A wise choice, Admiral. The process will be painless. You will retain your memories and personality while gaining access to the collective's vast knowledge." "I have just one question before we begin," Kethvar continued. "How many of these creatures exist in the galaxy? Currently, 47 Leviathans are active, each one guided by human crews. We have been mapping civilizations and hunting grounds for over 200 years. The Coalition is simply the largest target we have attempted. And after you consume our civilization, we move to the next sector. The Andromedan Trade Union has been expanding aggressively. They will make excellent prey after we finish with your people." Kethver nodded calmly, filing away every piece of information. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations, preparing for what he hoped would be their final act of defiance. "Begin the integration process," he said. Tendrils began emerging from the walls around the bridge. Each one moved toward a different crew member with obvious intelligence and purpose. The collective's voices spoke in harmony through the ship's speakers, welcoming them to a larger understanding of the galaxy. "Now," Kethver whispered. Lieutenant Zara activated the communications array overload. Science Officer Vexena redirected all available power to the electromagnetic pulse generators. Every light and display on the ship flared to maximum brightness. before releasing their energy in a coordinated burst. The electromagnetic pulse exploded outward from the stellar dawn like a miniature sun. The Leviathan's sensitive eyes along its surface closed reflexively, but not quickly enough. The creature released a sound that vibrated through space itself, a cry of pain and rage that shattered metal and organic matter alike. In that moment of distraction, Kethvar activated the ship's final emergency protocol. A tight beam communication burst shot toward Coalition space, carrying detailed scans of the Leviathan, recordings of their conversations with Captain Shun, and tactical information about the creature's capabilities. The message would take weeks to reach the nearest Coalition outpost. By then, the harvest would be well underway. But perhaps someone would learn from their sacrifice. "You cannot escape us," Shun's voice said through speakers damaged by the electromagnetic pulse. That was a clever trick, but ultimately pointless. The Leviathan's appendages tightened around their ship. This time, there was no gentleness. The creature began crushing the stellar dawn with deliberate malice. Hull plates buckled, and atmosphere vented into space through growing cracks. "Admiral," Vexena called out as her station exploded in sparks. "The reactor overload is building. 2 minutes to critical. Will it damage the creature?" "Unknown, sir. But the explosion will certainly destroy any trace of our technology and databases." Kethvar felt a grim satisfaction. Even if they could not escape, they could deny the Leviathan the knowledge it sought. The creature would gain nothing from consuming their ship except raw materials. Around the galaxy, the real hunt was beginning. The message Kethvar had transmitted included tactical positions, showing dozens of Leviathans moving toward major Coalition worlds. Each creature had spent months or years infiltrating their target sectors, disguised as asteroids or derelict ships. Now they moved with coordinated precision toward population centers that had no idea what was coming. On Zephyr Prime, the Coalition capital, early warning sensors detected what appeared to be a damaged freighter requesting emergency docking. The ship's configuration matched no known design, but distress signals were universal. Port Authority guided the vessel toward the main orbital station. On the industrial world of Kethros, miners found what looked like a valuable asteroid rich in rare metals. They began harvesting operations immediately, unaware that the asteroid was slowly positioning itself near their largest cities. On the research station at Nexus Point, scientists celebrated the discovery of what appeared to be a derelict vessel from an unknown civilization. They prepared to board it for study, not knowing that similar discoveries were being made simultaneously across their territory. The pattern repeated throughout Coalition space. 47 ancient predators moved into position while their targets remained completely unaware of the approaching danger. Back on the dying stellar dawn, Admiral Kethvar watched the final seconds count down. The reactor overload reached critical levels just as the Leviathan began the process of consuming their ship. The explosion tore through both vessels, destroying the flagship completely and carving a massive wound in the creature's side. But the Leviathan survived. It regenerated the damaged tissue within minutes, incorporating the energy from the explosion into its own biological processes. The creature had learned something new about Coalition reactor technology and defensive tactics. The sacrifice had only made it stronger. Captain Shun stood in the creature's rebuilt control chambers, studying the tactical displays showing the positions of all 47 Leviathans. The hunt was proceeding perfectly. Coalition defenses were designed to repel invasion fleets and energy weapons. They had no protocols for dealing with living ships that had spent years learning their technology and weaknesses. Phase 2 begins now, she announced to the other human crews scattered across the galaxy. All units commence feeding operations. Throughout Coalition space, the masquerade ended. Asteroids revealed themselves as ancient predators. Damaged freighters opened like flowers of teeth and hunger. Derelict ships came alive with appetites that had waited eons for this moment. The beings that had once laughed at primitive humans were about to discover why nothing in the universe should ever laugh at the dark between stars. Humanity had found the ultimate partners in that darkness, and together they were rewriting the rules of survival in a galaxy that had forgotten how to fear. The harvest had begun.